Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé bears all. This aired a while ago, but I'm going back in time and watching it. Let's watch.
He's really sweet, but he definitely has two personalities. And when he's sweet and kind, he's the best. He really is.
That's the best.
But boy, he can be an ass. Really an ass.
Well, I mean.
And I'm not the only one that says this.
Well, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean?
All right, interesting. So, by the way, this is an interview from a while ago on Bears All, I think maybe 8 months ago. And Sean's asking, why do you think your son, Colt, attracts the ladies? And Debbie's like, well, once you get to know him, he's a great guy, but he definitely has two sides to himself. He's a really sweet, nice person sometimes, and then he can be, a jerk face at other times. Now, what does she mean by that? I wonder. I also wonder about the father and what his personality was like, and frankly, Debbie's. I mean, we've seen some interesting sides to Debbie as well. And what have we seen from Colt? Well, I think we have seen a sweet side to him. Others might say that he's psychopathic and he's a con artist and he's just being sweet because he's trying to pull you in. Others might say that he's normally just a nice person, but when he's triggered, he can become very aggressive and insulting and raging. So maybe that's what Debbie's talking about.
Debbie?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Yeah, okay, let's see. He can be very derogatory. He can be smart-ass. He can be really condescending.
All right, interesting that we're hearing this. They don't usually have these kinds of scenes in the regular season where they're interviewing them. And I think a lot of people would agree, based on what we've seen on the show, that Colt can absolutely be condescending and superior sounding. So the mom recognizes that.
But that's not the normal Colt. He's really a sweetheart, normally.
So what you're saying is that he's sometimes unaware that he's coming off like that?
Yes, definitely.
I'm completely oblivious to all this.
Now, what people will say is that he's narcissistic, and what I'll say is that narcissistic personality is something that's very complicated. I just posted a rerun of me doing a deep dive. I think I talked for like 9 hours about the condition. It's not well understood at all by the public, even by clinicians. Research shows that 50% of clinicians will misdiagnose people with narcissistic personality disorder, let alone the public. The public rate of success was something like 3% or something out of 100, which is how percentage works out of 100. Anyway, so narcissistic personality disorder, as any personality disorder, is extremely complicated. Occasionally on Reddit, I'll see people trying to explain personality disorders or narcissistic personality disorder, and it never really fits. It's personality disorders. Let's just say, I think we can all understand that personality is complicated, right? The study of human behavior, the study of predicting human behavior in the future, the study of consistent traits that we have through time, the study of development, the study of the brain. We all understand it's extremely complicated. Personality disorders is a subset of that extremely complicated thing. It's an application of the complication, and so it's very complicated. Now, to call someone narcissistic, like they're self-centered or vain or something, or they seem to lack empathy, that's okay, because it's not necessarily a super clinical label. You're just observing. I think that person doesn't care about other people's feelings. I think that person is too focused on themselves. Totally fine. There's a big difference between that and narcissistic personality disorder. Even if you go online and you read the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, that does not make anyone an expert. I teach trainees narcissistic personality disorder, and I'll tell you that I can spend a number of weeks training my therapists, my students, my supervisees about personality disorders in general, particularly that disorder. And at the end of those number of weeks, they still don't really get it. You have to experience it anyway. But we can look at Colt right now, and from the mom and from our observation that Colt, when he's triggered, and the way that I would imagine, my hypothesis would be that when his attachments are being triggered, when he feels like he's being rejected, sometimes because he is causing people to reject him or triggering people to reject him, it begins with him, but he is experiencing rejection from Larissa or Jess, and he gets triggered and he gets hurt. And a lot of people will, because of their insecurities about revealing their pain, will transform that in anger and aggression. And some people, with their anger and aggression, and they want to assert themselves. They want to say, hey, stop doing this to me. Stop hurting my feelings. Stop making me feel like you're going to reject me. I don't like this feeling. And they will resort to talking down to someone to say like, hey, you're being stupid right now. I know there's something wrong with the way you're thinking, that kind of condescending tone. It's a strategy. It's not a good one, but it's a strategy that people will use to try to get someone to change their mind so that because the fantasy of the superior oriented person is, if I can get you to change your mind, then you won't leave me. You'll stop hurting my feelings. And it doesn't usually work. It usually obviously triggers the other person. And even if it does work, it's only temporary because you're just sort of making someone succumb to your will. And does Colt do this very often? Well, I don't know. I mean, we've seen signs of it on the show. Is it a consistent part of his personality? Only people close to him would know. But, the mom's kind of alluding to that.
Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
So
Yay.
let's play Never Have I Ever. Here we go. Never have I ever had a one-night stand.
That means yes.
You've done it.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
Okay. I don't know if I should be reacting to this. I find this to be a nice diversion from the typical content on this show. But so they're playing Never Have I Ever, and Sean's saying, I've never had a one-night stand. Which I was confused because Sean doesn't have a drink. So is Sean saying that she has never had a one-night stand? And then the two of them are drinking. I think it's just one directional, never have I ever. So the two of them are saying by drinking that they have had one-night stand. Doesn't surprise me. A lot of people have. Debbie, she's lived a long life.
I'm not surprised. Debbie, you got to tell me what happened.
She grew up in the 60s.
Oh, my God. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. I had a lot of one-night stands. I have one-night stands. I don't even remember their name. I had a one-night stand with the Marlboro Man.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, we tend to look at older people as like, what? And it's like, even older people have one-night stands. People have sex. It shouldn't surprise anyone, really. By the way, I think Debbie's going to be on the next season of Single Life, which I suppose maybe I'll watch. What would I think? I am kind of curious about Debbie's personality and how it fits with Colt. And I'm really curious about the father that passed away 10 or 15 years ago. I'm really curious about how that threesome, because, they were very tight family. I'm really curious as to how each of them, what their relational traumas are and how they raised Colt. And maybe we'll find out in Single Life. I don't know. Or is it called Single Life? Dating Life? What's it called?
One night stand with the actual guy?
He was a poster model, one night stand with the Marlboro. That was back in the 60s. Whatever.
So hold on a minute, Debbie. I think we have a picture. Is this the guy that you hooked up with, the Marlboro Man you hooked up with?
Now, I'm old enough to remember that there were various Marlboro men. So it wasn't like there was one Marlboro Man. In fact, that's not the Marlboro Man that I remember. So the fact that Debbie had sex with someone that claimed to be one of the Marlboro. Yeah, I mean, and as she says, look, I grew up in the 60s. People think that today, kids today with all their hookups and their Tinders and their sex and their stuff. Now, it's hard to know this because we have to ask people for self-report. But generally speaking, a lot of evidence seemed to show that people were having a lot more sex and a lot more unprotected sex and a lot more sex earlier in life, years past during Debbie's time. And today, young people are much more careful and isolated to some extent. They're at home in front of their computers and not outside having one-night stands with the Marlboro Man.
1969, I was like, that looks like him. We went back to my place. Oh, my God. I was such a whore.
I don't really need to hear that. Well, thanks for telling me.
Well, payback, you know? Whatever.
I guess the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree.
Right. It's a lighthearted conversation about your mom's past, and it's fine. And so I always use this show as a jumping off point. We have a lot of ageism in our society that says that old people are supposed to be a certain thing and that they're not allowed to be themselves. We'll shame them, right? And that old people aren't interested in these kinds of things. And so maybe we can say that this show is breaking those stereotypes, which is maybe good for all of us one day.
Wow. Okay. This game has started off a little risque. All right, here we go. Never have I ever faked an orgasm.
All right. So now, sometimes when they play these games, I try to guess what they'll say based on what I know about their personalities. And of course, I don't know their personalities, but I have some loose conceptualizations and hypotheses. For Colt, I can imagine both of them saying that they faked. With Debbie, because there's a lot of different roads to faking. One is that you just kind of want to get it over with and you're not really in connection with the person. Because if you have a good enough relationship with someone, you could just be like, look, could we speed this up? Like, I'm not really into this. You have the ability to say either verbally or non-verbally, those kinds of things. And you wouldn't have to fake. Faking usually occurs when you're insecure or you're not really secure in the relationship, or you feel like you're going to get judged if you don't fake, or you live in a misogynistic, toxic, masculine world that doesn't pay attention to your needs as a human being sexually. Who knows? But I could imagine Debbie saying absolutely she's faked in her life if she has had what she reports to be a fair amount of sexual activity when she was younger, that there might be situations where she doesn't know someone that well and she just wants to end it, or she wants to please the other person. She doesn't want to bother them. Or maybe even with her husband, it's not terribly uncommon. Whenever I hear that, I feel sad for everyone because because sometimes people don't have orgasms, and it's okay. 1, 2, if you're not, then communication. Let's change things around. Let's engineer things such that maybe I will. There's that. So I can imagine Debbie, given her history, saying that she has. Colt, I could also imagine, there's a myth that men don't, but they can for all the same reasons. And let's see what they say. I could see Colt saying no, and I could see Debbie saying yes, just given what I understand about the personality.
That would be an interesting
yeah.
magic.
I might want to take 3 or 4 drinks of this. I faked them. Every woman has faked it.
Now, that's not true. Certainly, it can be common, and maybe it was more common in the past because of misogyny. And I mean, we still don't live in a non-misogynist world or non-sexist world, but I wonder about that. That would be a hard thing to study because you're asking people to self-report. But in fact, I'm going to look up some research to see if I can find some. All right, so here's a study published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior. They looked at over 1,000 women aged 18 and 94, mostly heterosexual women, but gay women as well. And they found that 59% of the participants reported having faked an orgasm at some point in their life. But 2/3 of those who had faked said they no longer did. So it like something that they did a long time ago. So 59%. Looked at another way, 41% reported they never had faked an orgasm. And they say reasons for faking. They asked the participants. 57% of those who faked said they wanted their partner to feel successful. 45% said they wanted sex to end because they felt tired. And 38% said they liked their sexual partner and didn't want them to feel bad. I would say that all those are basically centering around this idea that they're trying to please their partner and they don't want to disappoint, they don't want to hurt their feelings, which would indicate, and these women in the study are saying that most of them, they don't do that anymore, which lends itself to the idea that this is something they did when they were just dating and they didn't really know their partner that well, which is encouraging. Research, they also asked why they no longer do, and 47% that they feel more comfortable now with sex, whether or not an orgasm occurred. 35% said they're feeling more confident with themselves as a woman, and 34% said feeling like their partner accepts them and is happy with them even if they don't have an orgasm. Another study here found that 10 to 15% of men have reported having faked an orgasm as well, far less than women, but still, a good percentage. 1 in 10, 1 in 8 men have faked an orgasm. So those are some stats on that. And we can use this as an opportunity to assess our own lives and our own relationships and our own needs, and think about what we can do to improve our lives, to improve our sexual lives, to improve our communication, to improve our ability to withstand someone feeling bad. You're just like, hey, it didn't work for me. The other person might feel bad. We need to be okay with that. It's okay. I did something, or I failed to do something. I couldn't get there, and they feel bad about themselves. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's certainly no reason to fake, which is lying, right? You hear me talk about lying. Now, in another situation, if you feel like you're going to get harmed if you don't fake or something like that, then you got to do what you got to do. But I would imagine most situations don't involve that.
I faked orgasms.
Well, it's easier for women. I don't think men.
Well, all women fake orgasms.
I don't think all women.
Yes, all women.
Not all women. So research shows. Now you're asking for self-report, but even at the high end of the data, it's 75%, maybe even as low as 25%. So the study that I looked at looked pretty solid at about something like 59%, having at some point in their history. And 2/3 of those women didn't fake in recent years because they're in a better relationship or at a better point in their life or something. So no, not all women, but most have in the past at some point. And that's another part of the study that I didn't see was they didn't ask this is how many times have you done it? The study, I didn't read that. Was it just once or was it every time? I don't know the data on that.
Sean, have you faked an orgasm?
I would say that Debbie is correct when she says that. Debbie is correct when she says that.
So Sean's basically admitting that she has. I find it interesting that they don't just Google it and look up the research, or maybe they don't have access to the same databases that I do.
All women fake at one time or another.
All right, final question. Never have I ever danced for money.
All right, I didn't click on pause fast enough. Debbie's grabbing. Again, from what it seems, she had, did she grow up in Las Vegas? Anyway, that she had an active life when she was younger, and she's danced for money. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean, well, maybe she'll explain.
Oh, my God.
Wait, tell me about this, Debbie.
Yeah, I was a go-go dancer for a very short time.
A go-go dancer. And where were you a go-go dancer?
Risqué and go-go.
Risqué and go-go. That is a very famous place to be dancing, Debbie.
I know.
Interesting. We're learning more and more about Debbie in this situation. She has a history and she has a life, no matter what you think about her.
Still got it in you.
I haven't done this for years. Oh, my goodness. Maybe I should have another drink.
All right. Woo!
So at this show, they'll do a lot of different kinds of things on the Bears All. We saw Big Ed playing the piano. Now we're seeing Debbie go-go dance. I don't know. On one level, I think it's fun to see a lighter side to these characters. Part of the reason why I watch this is to have some hypotheses about their personalities, and in order to do that, it's better to have a more well-rounded presentation. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.